Okay, so in this video, we'll learn a little bit more about the day-to-day of UX research work at Facebook. So, Mina, what does a typical day look like for you?
You're probably going to hate this response because I'm going to say there's no such thing. It's very cliched. There is no typical day, and definitely not at Facebook. Uh, so, and given that I work on the newsfeed team, you can imagine there's a lot of factors that probably will go into making decisions and affecting, the work that I do. But I'd say, my week is kind of structured with there's some weekly XFN meetings. When I say XFN, I mean, cross-functional stakeholders, across disciplines. Then there'll be our regular, research team meetings. And then outside of that, there's going to be me when I'm planning and scoping for my study, and I'm just getting prepped up, and writing out, scoping out the study, writing out the discussion guides, screeners, recruiting for that, and then of course running up the studies. So there's, I won't say there's a typical day, but there are phases where, I'm, in the planning process, the pre-study, then during the study, and then there's the post-study. So yeah, no typical day.
Yeah, I'd imagine. Well, and it sounds like you've got the sort of work for the studies, the prep, doing them, maybe the wrap. How much of the time do you spend sort of in a study mode versus between studies? Are they sort of constant, or is it, periods of like, okay, this is one every 6 months?
Yeah, so there's multiple things happening. Sometimes I could be running like fielding maybe two studies at the same time. Is just because maybe one may have been delayed and overlaps with the other, or then you're collaborating with another researcher on another project. And then outside of studies, you're also working on other sort of research citizenship efforts, within the team. And so there's those. So yeah, I mean, there's, again, like I said, there's nothing standard or typical. I could be working on one study and be heads down, which I would love to do, and spend a lot of time analyzing the data because that's my happy space. Or then it's just, trying to juggle between everything and attend the meetings and then, space it out that way. Yeah.
Yeah. Well, and you mentioned those meetings. What's your balance like between the sort of heads down, research time, heads up, talking to others, and meetings?
Yeah, I would say there are weeks where it's, 80% is just pure meetings and, doing all that work and just driving alignment and making sure we're aligned on actually the direction we want to take. And then on other times, like, when I said I'm researching, then it's probably, I'm doing the 60, 80% of the research work. And then I just come up to take the most important meetings and go back into work. So it just varies on that front.
Yeah, no, they're almost phases. It's interesting.
Mhm.
One of the things that I think many of my academic colleagues who are not sure about UX research, they may not know just how cross-functional it is, right? These XFN meetings, like
Absolutely.
you are embedded with a lot of other folks. What's the
Mhm.
sort of, what are the different functions who you work with to get your job done?
Yeah, yeah. So, primarily it's the PM who is the driver of most of these projects. There's product manager, then there'll be designers, there's content strategist, and engineers who will finally eventually build out the experience. And then, there'll be sometimes you'll have if you're lucky enough, you'll have a design program manager like a DPM. So just I think that's at the top of my mind. Those are the immediate XFNs that we work with.
Yeah. And keeping all those folks aligned must be.
Absolutely, right? Everyone comes with their own perspective, and to make a really successful design project or product, you're going to need to, have alignment and collective understanding, if you will, right, of the product from all these different cross-functional stakeholders.
Yeah. How did you select newsfeed among all the areas of Facebook to work on?
Newsfeed selected me.
Ah, nice.
So I did have my informational, like I interviewed actually to be part of the messenger team, which was really fascinated by messenger, and it has been so pivotal in my life as well, as a user. um, but I felt like I made a better fit with the newsfeed team, and it seems like, that's where all the action is happening, if you will.
Be central, front and center there in terms of your experience with Facebook, right? So,
Yeah, so I think that's how it just turned out.
yeah. Well, and what's it like to work on something that is so visible for so many folks, right? A product that you use yourself, that you know many people who use. What's that like for you?
It is interesting. And I can just speak to you like I know at the time when I worked at DocuSign and I would sometimes wear my like swag, you love free swag, and we'll say DocuSign. I'd like, and when I was commuting in public transportation, like people would just come sit next to me and be like, "Oh my God, you work at DocuSign. I absolutely love the company. I just closed my house and I signed all my documents in DocuSign." And then we just get started. And like, "What do you do?" And I didn't even have to solicit research. I was getting feedback no matter where I was. I'd stand in a line. Had people talk to me. So, I mean, yes, of course, there's that experience. And then, Facebook has also been through its ups and downs. And so I've had the highs where, oh my God, I'm so excited. You guys launched this whole COVID center and I love this new feature. And actually last year I launched avatars. I helped launch avatars on Facebook, which went absolutely crazy and viral. And so, my friends were excited about that. And then there's phases where, with the um, election and all the previous fiascos. And so sometimes conversations are not that, they're hard, they're tough. So I say it's a mixed bag.
Yeah, it sort of is that excitement of working on something very public
Yeah.
facing, but also the challenges that come with that.
Yeah, absolutely. Right. There's both. There's goods and bad.
Yeah. Well, and I'm curious, I know my memory of having worked at Facebook is that you work pretty hard. How often do you find yourself working nights or weekends?
Sorry, I have a feeling no matter which company I put you in, you will work very hard. So I,
Wait a minute. You said it wasn't Facebook, it was me? What?
yeah, but you are right. I think working at any tech company and they're so fast paced, you got to keep up. And especially with Facebook, because they have such a huge audience and user base, which is diverse and geographically spread out. And it involves a lot of international research and different time zones. So sometimes it feels like you're working, around the clock. And especially now, given that everything's remote, it's just harder, trying to fit it all in one day.
Yeah, well, and I can imagine the amount that if you were in an office and you had an in-person meeting, that
Mhm.
almost constrains the hours. Where if you're working over a remote office anyway, it's like, well, I know this person's probably awake at this time. It almost expands the working hours a bit.
It does. It definitely does. So that I think that's been true, I think, for a lot of people this year, right? Given that we're working from home in the tech space.
Yeah, no, it's definitely challenging. And how much do you work with folks from different parts of the globe? You mentioned sort of having that global reach.
A lot now because again, I'm in the phase where we're testing the product that I'm working on in different international markets. So I'm working with partners across the globe. But then again, there's times where we're focused on the US. So, not so much then. And also, this past year, we've seen our team kind of relocate to different parts of the US and, taking advantage of the fact that they can work from home. So we're spread out again across different time zones just in the US.
Yeah.
But that's slightly less crazy than trying to do international.
Exactly. You're like, all right, I have a constricted number of hours here. This is at least reality. But it's just so interesting thinking about that working for a global company. You will have that potential to be meeting someone
Right.
on the other side of the planet, which is
Absolutely.
amazing and schedule bending at the same time. The other thing I'm hearing is there's a lot of variety in what you do, right? As the projects turn over, as you've got different seasons, sounds like there's just a lot of there's not much that's becoming routine.
Yeah, not for me. Because last year I was supporting, like I said, the avatars as a product, and that was super fun learning what representation means to different people. How would you like to be represented, you with an avatar? And so I did that for about 8 to 9 months, and then I've switched over to this new product that, like I said, we're testing and we haven't launched yet. And again, it's completely different, like a new space, even though it's on newsfeed. So it's yeah, it's been different experiences for me. Not bored yet.
Yes, nice. Lots to dive into. Well, and so in our next video, I'll ask more about what you enjoy and what's sort of the best and the worst parts, and we'll dive in there. How's that
Sure.
sound?
Sounds good.